G'day guys, I'm back with the Outer Circle. In today's episode, we're going to be doing the range review finally for the Raven Guard. Now, in order to get this range review to happen, I basically just swapped from Australia to the UK web store because, well, not everything is available in the Australia web store, such as Corvus Korax. I don't know why they're posted from the UK facility to us in Australia. I guess we're just not allowed to have it currently. So let's kick off as usual with helmets. So we have the original helmet upgrades from Heresy 1.0, and they are rather bland and unimaginative. I like the slots going down the grill on the masks, but that's really about it. The Sergeant's helmet just having that simple stripe. I mean, it's thematic to the Raven Guard, but on the tabletop, you know, the person across the table from you might struggle to pick out which one's the Sergeant, for example. Especially when you have a bunch of guys who have like these wreaths around their heads in the squad as well. Yeah. So, on the whole, I wouldn't go out of my way to get these upgrades. Then we have the new ones, and the new ones have a very Rogue Trader-esque angry beak going on. I actually really like that. In fact, I wish this was the default head that was supplied in the basic plastic Mark 6. I do think, though, that the Raven icon on the helmet is significantly worse than the hand-sculpted icons from yesteryear. So, yeah, I think these are better. I actually really like putting the little rib down the center of the helmet with the little sensor on it instead of off to the side. That's kind of neat. Very smooth and more organic looking, and yeah, very Rogue Trader-esque. And of course, the Sergeant sticks out because of the plumed crest. I kind of wish they were a little bit more feathery. These still look more like hair to me. I think Raven's feathers would have been a nice touch there in the headdress. And the bare head is perfectly acceptable. I'm pretty sure this dude tried to sell me a used Commodore back in 2004. But anyway. Alright. Raven Guard 40k upgrades. The Raven Guard bare heads from 40k all look like hideous monsters with their tiny little facial features and gigantic jawlines. So I wouldn't recommend those, but all the little fetishes and trinkets, the little raven's heads and crow's feet, and especially on the shoulder pads, you can very, very easily remove these ones from the shoulder pads, just slice off the bit of the rim. Those are all really good little trinkets to just scatter throughout your army, throughout your legion. And you can take the scopes here, instead of attaching them to the Primaris call pattern bolt rifles, you can cut the scope away and have it as its own separate thing, or put it onto your character's bolt guns, sergeant's bolt guns, whatever it might be, just to accessorize that little bit. So yeah, I definitely think it's worth getting one or two sets of these upgrades, real, legit, or other means. It's up to you, I don't care. Then we get to the Raven Guard Contemptor, in the running for the worst Contemptor Dreadnought. I think the Space Wolves one is also particularly underwhelming. This is possibly worse. This idea of doing like this Maori style tribal tattoo sculpt onto the armor, where it's just lines and dot just haphazardly, looks awful, and I've never seen it painted well. And I mean by some brilliant painters. No one can make this shit look good. It's bad. And if you remove that from the Dreadnought, it's actually quite a nice Dreadnought. But, like, this whole central sharp rib that forms the breastplate of the Dreadnought with the Raven skull embedded into it, that looks great. You know? And the arched Gothic sort of trim around the helmet, that looks great as well. And I'm fine with the lanyard across the chest with the little trinkets hanging off it. Perfect. But it's this tattoo crap that just looks awful. And when you put it onto a regular Dreadnought chassis, it does not look good. It doesn't suit. You've got all this intense sculpted detail on the chest, and then nothing except flat, bare slabs of metal around it. Yeah, what an awful, awful misstep in the design ethos of the Raven Guard. Then we get to the Moritat Strike Squad. These models I love. Starting to suffer a little bit in the height department, as many modern sculpts do. And probably the first introduction of the tactical rock into the Horus Heresy, with this guy sort of over here on the right, famously mounted on one. So, beginning of an era. They are a pain to convert different weapons because of the way that these weapons attach to the hand, and the new kits don't work so well with that. So if you do want to give them other weapon types, because they have access to a variety of weapons, it is made a little bit more difficult because of this. Now, that said, they are perfect good with their sniper rifles. In fact, they're downright intimidating with the sniper rifles, although their special rules don't really benefit sniper rifles, ironically. Volkites are the best loadout for them, for the curious, because you can do an awful lot of crazy rending damage with the Volkites when you use their special ability. You could also buy them. Just a smart way of purchasing here is to buy them and just run them as Recon Marines if you're not using them as Moritat. They also give you a variety of parts that are pretty cool to add on to special characters and such, and the Raven Guard style shoulder pads that they come with this sort of little cutout on the Mark 6 where they have the little winglet. I personally cut the winglet off. I think it looks awful, but the shoulder pad design, the basic shoulder pad design, is really, really hot. I think it's one of the coolest shoulder pads going, actually, and I put them all through my Salamanders 30k army. I'm just calling it the Corvus pattern shoulder pad, and if I did more with Raven Guard in this edition, I have a Raven Guard army in this edition, I just stopped building it because their rules are so god-awful. I can't bring myself to have a hand tied behind my back, but I would copy this shoulder pad design throughout the army. I think it's very iconic and really, really good looking. And it's a fantastic specialist unit which looks exactly like you think a unit should in this Legion. Moving on from there, we get to the Dark Furies. And the Dark Furies, again, suffering from the height issue. Mitigated slightly by the fact they have such huge jump packs that give them a sort of bit of extra height. And makes them sort of closer to their peers. But on the whole, very short Space Marines, these guys. These, though, are the type of Mark 6 jump pack and jump unit that I really like. I think they look a lot better than the Mark 6 Assault Squad that's just come out, with the way that the cabling attaches into the chest and such. I think that looks really cool. And again, the shoulder pad design, chef's kiss. The Sergeant up the front with his Raven's Talons, his lightning claws, that really curved over sickle-shaped claw, very similar to what we see on Core Pharaon. I wish everyone in the unit had that, as opposed to just the sort of standard lightning claw design. Like, make them look a bit more special. Like, the Raven's Talons are a unique thing. They're not just another lightning claw. Because that's kind of what they look like. The jump pack itself, you can actually move these little winglets and put them in a couple of different positions on the backpack, so they don't have to be tucked in the way they are. But they look really good in real life. So a credit to them there. You can sort of spay them out, as it were, and yeah, they look good. The jump packs themselves, they're huge, but when you're actually handling them, they look really good. So really cool little unit, and I would consider using these guys as a set of stuff to kit bash characters from, or at least pull parts from. I think with the Raven Guard and just the sheer lack of stuff that they've been given by the company, you really do need to buy sort of an extra 5 Moritat, an extra 5 Dark Furies, and just spread those parts liberally throughout to give you all your different HQ and veterans and sergeant upgrades throughout the army, just to really make them stand out. But another really, really lovely unit. Now, from here, we have a bit of an issue, which is we've exhausted the Raven Guard units, bar the Primarch. So we have more units to fill in here, console types and things like that. Now, the Raven Guard don't get unique console for some reason, even though they had like the first Moritat, Headdress Next, Moritat Primes and all of that. Not that Headdress Next was the first Moritat. Someone will correct me if I don't say it. But we have special units like Deliverers, and so I'm going to go through. We're going to first talk about Deliverers and work our way up from there with ascending levels of conversion potential. So we're going to start with the Sons of Horus Justinian Terminators. These are the template for the Deliverers. Deliverers are armoured in this same armour with basically access to all of the same weapons and kit. So my suggestion is to incorporate that. Go, hey, if they want to look like Sons of Horus and basically have in the promo art the inverse colour scheme of these guys, just go all in on it. My only suggestion would be to cut away the Sons of Horus icon that's on the left shoulder and where you can on knee pads and stuff. Now for the ones who have like this big belt buckle that's an Eye of Horus icon or the Eye of Horus icons on the chest, I think you can leave those there because they've worked with the Sons of Horus closely and they've kept those marks of allegiance. But otherwise, I would remove those and go for Raven Guard iconography. Use these guys over the standard Terminators because these look more aggressive than standard Terminators. In an ideal world, I would have a bunch of Tiberus the Red Wake. I'd have his helmet, or potentially even the new Sons of Horus upgrade helmets would look quite good, I think, on these bodies. But I would have Tiberus the Red Wake's helmet and his Lightning Core Power Fist hands on Raven Guard Deliverers and maybe Multi-Melters. I'm pretty sure they can take Multi-Melters, like 99.9% sure they can take Multi-Melters. I would definitely do that on this unit and take a full 10 of them because stuff it, why not? Really good, really strong unit. Yeah, that's what I would probably do here. And if I wanted to have a character that matched them, that looked good in there, I would probably look at the new Sons of Horus Terminator character. Or maybe even Ezekiel Abaddon. The Ezekiel Abaddon model for 30k is a little bit more generic looking than the Sons of Horus Cataphracti Praetor. And again, wouldn't be super hard to convert him into a Raven Guard Terminator armoured character to go with Deliverers. So that is definitely an option for you. Then we have the Legion Vigilator. So a natural fit for the Raven Guard and the Raven Guard's skill set. I think the Vigilator is a really solid choice here. Now, if you had something like the Mark 6 upgrade heads, just going back to here, for example, maybe the crested helmet one, but even just one of these sort of angry beakies, any of these helmets would actually probably look pretty good on the Legion Vigilator here. Just tying him in more with the rest of the army and it turns it more from just a Mark 4 armor into more of a Mark 5 armor. It makes it look a little bit more cobbled together, and that works well with the look of like these little armored plates and stuff on the shoulder, extra rivets in the knee, like all of that. And it just makes it a little bit more tied in together, a little bit more thematic. And by doing that, you could also use this guy then as someone like an Alvarax Morn. Now, I did my own conversion for Alvarax Morn and Headdress Next. There are YouTube shorts on here showing those characters. But if you wanted to run those special characters that are available, even if they're not great in the case of Alvarax Morn, it's a very easy way to do so. Then the next level up, we go to the Moritat. Now, the Moritat here, I think the Volkite is still the better option for Raven Guard to run. The Plasmas, they were so much fun in Heresy 1, and they just are not great in Heresy 2. They've ruined plasma guns and plasma weapons of all kinds. Don't even look at them. You're setting yourself up for disappointment. So Volkite is definitely the way to go. But again, if you wanted to do something like a Headdress Next, okay, we can look at head swap. I mean, we have to actually cut the head away physically from the body because it is molded as one piece. But we can start to look at adding things like those Raven fetishes and changing out the weapons from these Volkites. We could look at taking parts from like Necromunda kits or Gene Stealer cults and giving him like different weapons to turn him into that character. So these are options available to you. Then we have the Mark 6 Librarian console. So he actually fits into Raven Guard, which is nice. And I would suggest that the cloak here would actually look really good painted up as a camo cloak. So again, suiting the Raven Guard a lot better than, well, what we see. Now, with the Librarian, they are a really, really good choice for Raven Guard because shutting down reactions especially is just chef's kiss. And you have a lot of units that can shoot from outside reaction range, which means that by shutting down the reactions that you can with the Librarian, that allows the units that are closer in to actually, leverage that. So, definitely a good option for you. Now, with this model and choosing your conversion parts, I don't suggest this bare head, and I'm not particularly enamored with this head that they've chosen. So again, I would refer you down to the upgrade heads and selecting something that looks a little bit appropriate here. I think an Angry Beaky personally would look quite good as a head upgrade here, but you could get away with the head that they've supplied. Weapons wise, I think you got enough of this sort of left arm exposed that maybe you could keep it with that hand. Maybe change the right hand out to, say, a lightning core, and then go for a sheathed weapon like a maul, perhaps. I think a force maul is probably the best of the force weapons. It doesn't cut through armor like an axe does, but the high strength of a force maul makes it a very, very dangerous weapon. So, and especially against Demons of the Ruinstorm, the Force Maul is a Demons of the Ruinstorm annihilator because it's high enough strength to instant death them and cause just high strength wounds on them. So all you got to do is get one big wound through on the big guys and you just instant kill them. Really, really worth it on the Librarian console if you're going up against Demons of the Ruinstorm. So give him a Raven's Talon on the one arm, replace that sort of right arm with that, and then the left arm can just be still casting spell shit into the air, but go for probably a maul slung of some kind. And then conversion level, difficult, we're going to say. So again, going with the Raven Guard were allied with the Sons of Horus theme, you can go all in on that route. Yep, this is Mark 5 power armor. This is not Mark 3. I mean, they're trying to say it's Mark 3, but I would treat it as Mark 5. So give him a beaky helmet, for example. Those arms, swap him out to a loadout of maybe Thunderhammer combat shield, or just looks wise, I think there's a lot of potential there. But with these spikes and the Lodge coins and things like that, this guy would make a great Trader Raven Guard or a Terran Loyalist Raven Guard, or even heading into the Black Shield's territory, like Ashen Claws, something like that. Really, really solid bits here. Now, I say it's conversion level difficult because there is a lot of 16th Legion iconography on this model to shave off. It probably is going to be too hard to salvage the standard on his back, but you could cut off the standard, and you can see from behind, you can cut off the standard right at the base of the pole and replace it with the standard Legion Vexilia. Keep the same backpack with all the Lodge coins and chains and this cool 4 nacelle design, because I think it's a really cool design model, and just have a standard Vexilia on there. It'll still look a very, very Raven Guard. Or you could even cut away entirely the post and then put a set of aerials or antennae on there, because the Raven Guard and the whole, interconnected calling in support type thing. So what you could do there with it. The shoulder pad, for the side with the Eye of Horus, Sons of Horus icon, there are going to be plenty of spare Mark III shoulder pads floating around online that you could utilize. That are blank and put a decal on there for the Raven Guard, or you could do something different and unique with it. Maybe put the spike trim shoulder pad onto this side, treat it like a rivet shoulder pad, and then put maybe a 3D printed or a spare Mordathan / Dark Fury style shoulder pad. So the Dark Fury ones just have 19 sculpt on them, which looks really good. Get one of these shoulder pads onto the other shoulder, and now you're starting to really have a character that's very, very unique. Okay, this is how I look at creating my characters and sculpting them and converting them. So I did one recently for the Iron Hands. I did an Ortec Maw, and my Ortec Maw was very heavily converted from an Imperial Fist model. Again, there is a YouTube short where you can see sort of a work in progress as I've assembled it, and then one as he's painted. That's the approach that I would take. And again, leaning into, I'm not just taking this model and trying to turn him into a clean Raven Guard. I'm treating him as this is a Terran veteran, very close ties to the Warrior Lodges and the Sons of Horus. So he will carry over things like those chains, the spikes, the more brutal approach. Like, this guy is a brawler. He is the cusp of being a Night Lord almost. Because you've got to remember, the original Terran-born Raven Guard, they were recruited from basically Maori and Maori biker gangs and Indonesian gang members. You know, that was their lineage in old Terra. And so you can play that into the Legion. Like, you can go down the Korax Deliverance, the noble sort of Shadow Hunters, or you can go down that route. And those guys were also hanging around the Sons of Horus, which, you know, encourage them to be aggressive. And their natural gene seed in the Raven Guard is very much similar to the Blood Angels. They're a very, very aggressive legion. By nature. Korax just tempers that. He taught the Raven Guard restraint. But the Raven Guard on the whole were very aggressive, very much like Sons of Horus Reavers as an army. So when you design a character, play into that strength. Now to finish it all off, Corvus Korax himself. This Primarch is nice, but I think it was a bit of a miss in many ways. The going for the sort of pistol, I think everyone expected the whip, and we got the whip, but it's just sort of, you know, rolled up on his hip. I think the whip ended up being too fragile in resin, and he originally was whipping, and they modified it. This is all hearsay, and we're going off hearsay from, probably 7-8 years back now at least. Yeah, that hearsay about it is very interesting. And I'll tell you this, as a model, that jump pack looks gorgeous. It is the most fragile thing I think I've ever worked with. It is so easy to snap off these little winglets because there is so little meat holding them together and holding them along the sort of pinions. So no wonder he lost it at Isfahan because, yeah, that thing shatters easily. And I've had people send me versions of this before to work on. They're like, hey, you know, can you paint my Korax? And he's just come literally looking like a hand grenade was mailed with it. Now that could just be because Australia Post, which is our parcel delivery service here in Australia, gave it the mandatory 6 kicks along the ground like a football, and then had a large overweight man sit on the package. I believe that is company policy here in Australia, and I'm sure mail service around the world is completely different to that, and they all treat the mail with the utmost respect. And if you are a postman listening to this, whose feelings I have hurt, stop breaking my shit now. But every time it's arrived broken, what I have done is turned it into the Isfahan Korax. So I cut away the Architect pistol and give him an underslung heavy bolter in place instead. I think it looks pretty damn cool because he was using a heavy bolter like a bolt gun. He just ripped it off some Iron Warrior that he murdered because he's like the nice version of Batman. If Conrad Kurz is evil Batman, well, this is nice Batman, you know. Nice in that he'll still murder you, but, you know, he won't do anything to your dead body at least. You know, take the wins, take the small wins. Now, as an actual design and the elements they've chosen for the armor, going for a sort of... it's essentially Mark 6 meets Mark 2. The best way to look at the armor. You know, he's got these long, solid greaves and legs, which are very Mark 6, but the shoulder pads are very Mark 2, and so is the breastplate. The backpack is sort of fusion of multiple different jump pack designs, but very much has the Mark II hallmarks in there of the single separate nacelles with the little directional thrust vectoring vents and aerofoils around them. All of that is a good design. And the armor itself, the Sable Panoply, I believe they call it, the black armor is really, really nice. There is detail sculpted into it like the tattoos, but it's very, very subtle in how it's designed, and it allows you to paint it with a lot of ease. Very, very different to the hack job that is the Dreadnought. So I found it a rather enjoyable model to paint, and I've painted a few of them now. A lovely little design, and yeah, I just think it's let down by just the sheer fragile nature of these wings. They are just so prone to damage. And I don't know that I'm a big fan of the pistol. This long barreled pistol hanging out the back there doesn't seem like Korax to me, you know. I would rather he had no pistols and was just going to town with the cores, as opposed to being a sort of pseudo Moritat design, which is what we got. But anyway, that's it. I am Mac with the Outer Circle. This has been the range review for the Raven Guard Legion. And next one out will be the Alpha Legion. Then I think we might go on to toss up between the Custodes and the Mechanicum. Anyway, I'll see you on the next video.